Welcome to The Shed Wireless, a podcast for shedders, produced by the Australian Men's Shed Association and hosted by John Paul Young.
Yeah, there's something for you at the Men's Shed.
Hello and welcome to the Shed Wireless podcast, made in Australia and distributed all over the world for the love of shedding. It's great to have you here with me on the Shed Wireless podcast. Thanks for stopping by today. Here's what we'll be talking about in this episode. It's November, and you know what that means? Our special guest today is Jeremy Phillips-Yelland from Movember to tell us what they're doing and how we can get involved. In Shed in the Spotlight, we're talking to Rob Shannon, Secretary of the Jurien Bay Community Men's Shed, about their project which won them the Innovation in Fundraising Award at the National Shed Awards. That's really interesting. For On the Pulse, Stuart is talking again about one of those subjects that we may prefer to ignore: incontinence. Marty is talking to a couple of people from Lake Monger Community Shed in West Australia who have a pottery group for our On the Tools segment. I love a bit of pottery. Rip Woodchip is going to tell us his thoughts on love and marriage in Nailed It. That will be interesting. Okay, let's get into it.
You're listening to The Shed Wireless with my good friend, John Paul Young. It's a podcast for shedders across Australia and around the world. Get ready to shed.
Yeah, there's something for you at the Men's Shed.
Well, today we have another JPY in the studio. I'm here with Jeremy Phillips-Yelland, the Director of Policy and Advocacy for Australia and New Zealand, with Movember. I nearly said November. Movember. It's a wonderful name, Movember. Who came up with that?
Thanks, JPY. Great to be here in another JPY's presence.
Yeah.
Movember was the original name. One of our founders, Travis Garone, who's still involved with the organisation, he's still on the board. It's his idea. And him and his mates back in 2003 just felt like the moustache needed to come back into fashion. And so they got together and did a little bit of fundraising for that first year. All the funds went to the Prostate Cancer Foundation that year, but Movember's stuck firmly.
No, it's fantastic. Can you just tell me a little bit more about the organisation and exactly what they do?
Certainly. So, as I was saying, Movember's 21 years old this year. It started in a little bar called the Gypsy Bar on Brunswick Street in Fitzroy in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
The bar's no longer there anymore. I think something's taken its place. But, Trav and his mate Luke got together. They're both creative types, designers, and they decided that the mustache had to come back into style. And so they got 30 friends together that first year to start fundraising. I think they made just under $100,000 in that first year.
Yep.
But that multiplied into year two, and by year three, they were up to almost $4.5 million. Fast forward to 2024. Over the last 21 years, the organisation's made over $1.6 billion.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that's an enormous figure, isn't it?
It really is, and it's such a success story. You know, it's been going on for so long, and you know, I always think of John Newcomb. You know, when I hear of Movember. Now,
Well, I think there's been lots of famous, support ambassadors for Movember over the years.
Yeah.
And of course, we celebrate famous mustaches. And one of our meeting rooms at work is named after John Newcomb, so he's immortalised there on a stencil on the glass.
Oh, that's great. Can you give us some insight into cooperation that we're having with the Australian Men's Shed Association and Movember? What's happening there?
Yeah, certainly. One of the other great Australian success stories, the Men's Shed movement. Yeah, incredible work that they do across the country. So we're both, I suppose, at our core, men's health organisations. And our goal is to support men to lead healthier, longer lives. And one of the amazing things about the Men's Shed movement, and I'm sure David, the executive director, has been on the show before sprouting this exact same stat, so I won't claim that I came up with it myself, but apparently there's more than sort of 1,300 men's sheds across Australia, which means that there's more men's sheds than there are McDonald's outlets.
Indeed.
Which is
it's
pretty
a wonderful,
amazing.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And especially when you extrapolate that to overseas success as well. It's great that something that starts over here in our smaller population of Australia spread so wide. It's great.
That's right. And one of the things that they're brilliant at being able to do is connect and reach men wherever they are across the country. It's one of the things that works so well, I suppose, with Movember is that we'd love to connect with those men to learn a little bit more about their experiences of their own health and the healthcare system in their neck of the woods.
Yep.
And the men's sheds allow us to do that. So just on Friday last week, we had a gathering and a barbecue breakfast at Parramatta Men's Shed to touch base with the guys that work out of that shed, and also a few sheds around Western Sydney came to join as well, and just to open up a conversation about their own health and also the healthcare services in their area. I suppose because what we're working together on a large scale with the Men's Shed Association on is to create a bit of a movement for men's health, to lift the profile of men's health as an issue, because as we might chat about a little later on, we've got a bit of room to manoeuvre. We've got some work still to do to improve the equity of health outcomes when it comes to men. Yeah,
and I was reading here, that some men go to the doctors and aren't exactly happy with the kind of reception that they get, with whatever problem they have.
Yeah, that's right. So earlier this year, we released a report called the Real Face of Men's Health Report, which is one of the first pieces of work of its kind, and it's the first key document that's come out of the Movember Institute of Men's Health, which is an organisation that's designed to lead all of our impact work. So $1.6 billion raised over time. We've run 1,300 men's health programs with those funds. And the Institute's job now is to really target the work that we're doing to lift health outcomes. So the report touches on a couple of things, including men's experience of the healthcare system.
I'm just sort of realising myself that, Movember is not just a charity that collects money and gives to other organisations. You're right in there, boots and all, aren't you?
Yeah, indeed. So, we're quite a large organisation, obviously, and fair enough, people think that we just sprout out of the ground in October and disappear again in December. But we're actually an all year round organisation with 6 offices in 6 countries across the world, and we fundraise in about 28 different markets. But the most powerful part of Movember is the impact that we've been able to have, our investment in all sorts of programs across the spectrum of healthcare. So we do research at the start end to make sure we can keep men healthier and in their communities. We also invest heavily in treatments. Over the years, we've been a key part of developing a number of cancer treatments, including for prostate cancer, which is where a lot of our investment has gone historically.
Yeah, I just lost a friend of mine to that, the original drummer in the first band I have had when I was about 18, and prostate cancer got him, sadly, so it really is everywhere. And if you don't hear about prostate cancer so much, but you hear about men having a problem in the area. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me, John. And it's I'm very sorry, firstly, for your loss, and also reflecting on that being a really common conversation. So we have the biggest generation in history, all sort of hitting the point where prostate cancer becomes more of a likelihood for men in their 60s and 70s. And we've come a long way in terms of diagnosis and in terms of treatment, but it's going to be a huge challenge to make sure we can get the service provision right for the biggest generation ever, who will all be hitting that milestone pretty soon.
Yeah. Now, tell me about the ripple effect.
Oh, the ripple effect, yes. Well, that brings us back to the report. So the report touches on a number of different things when it comes to men's health. The first section is about premature mortality. So 2 in 5 men die prematurely, which is before 75 years of age. And the vast majority of those men die from premature causes.
Right.
Premature causes, that are almost entirely preventable. So a lot of chronic disease, a lot of heart disease is there, and there's obviously also a large role played by suicide in men in terms of that premature mortality. What we see from the report is that the further you live from a capital city, the worse your likelihood is in terms of premature mortality.
Right.
And other factors including you're more likely to die prematurely if you're a First Nations Australian, if you're from a culturally or linguistically diverse background, if you're from the LGBTQIA+ community, and if you're in a rural area, or if you're a veteran of either our first responders, so police, ambulance and fire service, or of the military as well. So all those groups overrepresented. But I suppose the silver lining is that the vast majority of those premature deaths are preventable.
Yeah.
And the report speaks to a couple of other things in terms of how we can go about that. But I'm dancing around the subject. You asked about the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our work to lift the profile of men's health is about putting a spotlight on how large the impact could be if we improve men's health outcomes, and in fact how big the issue is if men are leading unhealthy lives. Mm-hmm. So the ripple effect is that men's health, of course, directly impacts 50% of the population, but it indirectly impacts everyone else, the other 50%.
Yeah.
When men are leading healthier lives, then they have healthy relationships, healthy families, and healthy communities, and we have that positive ripple effect of health go into each of those societal groups. But the inverse is also true. When we have men who are unhealthy, it impacts their relationships, it impacts their families, and it impacts on their communities.
Well, now I agree. I'm starting to see the connection between men's sheds because, women, of course, they were responsible for starting the men's shed. And I'm sure that, everybody that's been to a men's shed would know that old saying of, why don't you go and do something? Come and join the men's shed. And they do, much to their, it's wonderful that they do things like that. So how can shedders get involved in advocating for a change?
Well, they do a great job at reaching out to their local members of parliament. I used to be a staffer back in the day for a couple of politicians, and I guarantee the first thing that went into the diary each year was whatever event the local men's shed invited the politician to. Pollies love the men's shed. Obviously, it's a great Australian success story.
Yep.
It always comes with a bit of grub to eat when you're there. The best way to support is in all of their conversations that they would naturally have with their local members of parliament. Chat about their own healthcare experiences and their experiences of the healthcare system in their local area. And that helps us to build, I suppose, the momentum behind what we call changing the face of men's health, so lifting the profile and making men's health a bigger issue. And of course, in terms of the more formalised approach to advocacy, just like we did at Parramatta last weekend, in a couple of weeks, we have an event up in Dalby in Queensland. The week after that, an event down at a Bendigo shed in Victoria. And each of those events, we're inviting the local MPs from state and federal parliament in to meet with the shedders, to chat about men's health, and to start building that sort of momentum for more change. So in terms of getting involved, they can reach out to their state manager or to the Men's Shed Association head office if they'd like to host a similar event. And we can support that happening.
So that's to get involved in a fundraising activity for Movember.
Well, that's what we call an advocacy activity, I suppose, so reaching out to their local MPs. But if they'd like to get involved with fundraising, that would be amazing as well. We have lots of different ways that people can get involved in Movember fundraising at this, what we call the hairy season. So Movember being the hairy season.
I was thinking, we can get the ladies involved and encourage them to grow their underarm hair.
Well, everything is possible, that's sure. And so the easiest way to get involved is to head to Movember.com and sign up to fundraise this year. What we can also do in terms of supporting a little bit of the organisation of that work, but also get some of the creative and competitive juices flowing. We're able to create teams so that a men's shed can have their own Movember team, and they can either join forces with some other sheds in the local area, or they can set up what we call a challenge, which means that the teams can compete with and alongside each other as to who can fundraise the most. But obviously you can grow a mustache, and we would support that, but lots of other ways to get involved as well. We have what we call a move goal, which is moving your body, so being a little bit extra in terms of your exercise across the month. So last year I did 60 kilometres in the pool, so I swam 60 kilometres across the month of November. That was to represent the 60 men we lose to suicide every hour. But that was a pretty big trek in the pool in Fitzroy there. So I spent a lot of time looking at the black line. But I got there in the end. When you miss a day or two, the kilometres start to bank up. So I had a couple of 10-kilometre days, which thankfully I won't be doing again. So there's the move goal component. There's also hosting a moment, which is any type of event that you'd like to fundraise with. We have one of our famous Mo bros named Mark He's originally from the inner west of Sydney. He's now down just north of Wollongong. He hosts a ball each year called the Fur Ball, which is sensational. It started in one capital city, and now it's in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. And I think over his time fundraising, which is about 12 years, Mark's raised about $350,000 for men's health. So a very
That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. A very effective way is to host a moment or an event.
Yep.
And the final one is you can mow your own way. So any way you'd like to fundraise is fine with us. We have people that climb mountains, swim across freezing lakes, cycle hundreds of kilometres, run marathons. Any way that people like to fundraise, we're there to support.
Well, that's really great. Thanks very much for your time, Jeremy. And it's wonderful to see that Movember and the Australian Men's Shed Association are teaming up because, like you say, we're both in the same business, really.
Certainly, we can already see sort of the winds of change afoot in terms of things starting to move in greater support of men's health, and the Men's Shed Association has been just so instrumental for that movement. So big thanks to the association and thanks to you today for sitting down and chatting all things men's health.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Jeremy, and have yourself a great Movember this November.
You too.
Bye. Keep your eye out for information coming soon from AMSA about how you can submit your name to show support for government action on men's health and to share your experience of the healthcare system so we can better campaign for change.
Shedder in the Spotlight. Let's meet and learn about the life of one of our shedders.
The Australian Men's Shed Association recently announced the winners of the National Shed Awards, which was proudly supported by Fair Dinkim Builds. Today, we're talking to Rob Shannon, Secretary of the Jurien Bay Community Men's Shed, the winner of the Innovation in Fundraising Award. Now, here we are. We're talking to this wonderful place called Jurien Bay in Western Australia. Rob, just tell me exactly where along the coast are you?
Well, we're about 220 kilometres north of Perth. Halfway, if you like, between Perth and Geraldton. Right on the coastline, so magic place, absolutely beautiful. I'm an Albany boy originally. Some magnificent coastal scenery around Albany. Jurien Bay isn't quite as scenic as Albany with the harbour and the sound and then the islands and so on as well. Jurien Bay hasn't quite got that, but what we've got up here is a little bit warmer weather, which I appreciate.
Yes, indeed. I was going to say she can get very chilly in Albany.
Yeah, it does that. Yeah.
Right. Let's have a chat about Rest in Reef. I've got to say straight off the top, this is an absolute genius of an idea. Who came up with the idea? Was it one person?
Well, more or less, I guess. We actually, in 2013, we got approval to build an artificial reef off the coast here. And that was done as a snorkel trail, so not too far offshore, 50, 60 metres offshore, with substantial sized reef balls, probably standing the best part of a metre and a bit high, and weighing probably 2 tonnes or thereabout. So there were 79 of those put in the ocean. And while we were doing that, we had one of our members pass away. Not on the job or anything like that, but he just got ill and passed away. His widow came to the guys who were building the shed and said, "Look, is there any way that perhaps his ashes could be put into one of those reef balls?"
Yeah.
And that's sort of where the idea originally came from. Now, at the time, there was no intention to create a rest in reef, and there was virtually a 2-year approval process to go through to actually get all of the environmental approvals and then the Shire Council approvals and so on to be actually able to do that. So the original artificial reef was completed. And then we looked at the artificial reef project, and the balls that we use for the artificial reef project are much smaller, probably only standing about a half a metre high or so. They come in at about 220 plus kilos, so much smaller, but much easier for us to put into the ocean on a regular sort of basis. The artificial reef was an enormous project.
It's I got to say that I thought that it would have taken longer than 2 years to get the approval, so I'm quite surprised.
Yeah, look, the it's not easy to get those approvals through.
No.
But I think because it was such a novel idea, the approvals were already there for reef balls to go into an artificial reef, and
Yeah.
these resting reef balls would simply add to what was already existing and so on. They were constructed in such a way as they're going to be in there for hundreds of years without deteriorating or falling to pieces and so on. They won't move at all. They're too heavy and to be able to move. They do promote sea life growth very rapidly. Within hours, there are fish, sort of checking them out and so on.
Mm.
And within a week or two, there is marine growth already appearing. So,
Oh, it's fantastic.
yeah.
And you received an Innovative Fundraising Activity Award at the National Men's Sheds Awards this year.
Yeah, we did, which was, it acknowledges the work that was done by our foundation members who actually came up with the concept and did all the work and so on to create this. And so it's due recognition of the fantastic effort and their sort of foresight to actually do this project. It is definitely innovative. It's certainly the only one of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere, not just in Australia, but in the Southern Hemisphere. And there's only one or two, perhaps, that are happening in I think it's the United States or whatever, that have a resting reef there as well. So it is definitely innovative. It doesn't raise a lot of funds for us, which is probably a good thing. I mean, it's deceased people that are going into these reef balls, or their ashes are.
Yeah.
So we're probably doing, on average, maybe 2 or 3 a year. There are a number of our own members who have opted up, taken the option to go into a reef ball as well. And I think there's one this week that's going in, which is unfortunate. He passed away a little while back, and his family opted for a reef ball. So,
Right.
but it doesn't raise a huge amount of funds for us. Certainly not our biggest fundraiser, but it does raise funds.
But it certainly raises the whole awareness of the men's shed and the work, the community work that they get involved in. It's because it's different.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the whole idea of men's shed really is around, as you're well across, is about men's health.
Yeah.
So anything that raises awareness of that is just a great thing. Anything that gets men interested in joining a men's shed is a great thing as well, because that's an opportunity then for them to become part of that that mateship, camaraderie sort of atmosphere that you get at men's sheds.
Mm-hmm.
That builds that rapport between men, creates a network for them within communities. We get a lot of guys joining here who are new to town. We've got a growing town at the moment. We have, because we're only 200 clicks north and so on, it's a very popular retirement place, Jurien Bay. So our population is growing quite rapidly, particularly with seniors. And blokes, when they move into town, don't really have a group of friends to join up with and so on. So men's shed's a great place for that. Then they get the benefit of being able to, talk to other guys about health issues and stuff like that. Because as we get older, these things start to happen. And it's great to be able to talk to somebody who's been through it or going through it, and to get their perspective. And all of a sudden that fear of going to the doctor or going to the specialist, going out and having a procedure or some test done or whatever, that disappears. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, that camaraderie is fantastic, especially like you say for people who are moving into the area. The men's sheds, they really do so much in that area for sure. Now, what was I going to say? Can you just run me through the size of these things again?
Well, they're around about 500-600 mils high, probably similarly wide. They are actually circular. It's a sort of a semi ball. They call it a reef ball. It's not a full on ball that's going to roll around the bottom of the ocean. Has a totally flat bottom, probably about 600 or so wide at the bottom, and then sort of it's a half reef ball more than a full reef ball.
So they're not joined together.
No, they are hollow. So when we're actually pouring the concrete into them, there's actually an inflatable ball that we put inside the mould, and the concrete's poured around that. The concrete itself is a particularly strong mix, somewhere around 50 MPa, mix about twice as hard as the concrete goes into a floor. And so it's going to withstand the ocean. There's no reinforcing in the mesh, or no reinforcing mesh in the reef ball at all. We don't want anything in the ocean that's going to rust and so on, and perhaps then crack open the ball or whatever. But the marine life can move through it. There are holes in the side of it as well. So marine life can move in and out of it. We've got video and pictures of fish swimming through them. Within a couple of months, we've had crayfish occupying them. Unfortunately, now at the moment, we've got a sand movement issue off our coast. And whereas all the pundits are saying, all the experts supposedly are saying that the sand will actually go away from the beach, will be washed away, and the water will end up 100 metres up further inland than what it is currently. But it's been going the other way for 50 or 60 years, so we just wonder when it's going to turn around. But so a lot of the original reef that was constructed is now covered with sand, but they do say that it'll be exposed in time. And similarly with the reef balls, some of those will be covered in sand, and later in the years they'll be exposed again.
Yeah. Now they have a stainless steel plaque on them.
No, not on the reef ball itself. All reef balls are unmarked totally.
Oh, okay.
There is a little plaque that's put on a memorial wall at the beach.
Oh, I see.
So everyone that is in a reef ball, that there's a little stainless steel plaque that sits there as a record of it. We also have a register. We asked the family for a bio on the deceased person. So it's just a one-page bio, a little bit of their history and their details and so on. And that's kept in a register at our local community resource centre. That's there for public viewing if people want to go and read it and see who was in there or whatever, but it's also a record that we keep, not in the shed itself, but actually in a publicly accessible, and if you like, it's a more permanent sort of arrangement.
I suppose in times to come you could actually have a situation where you could look them up and get that whole biography on your phone.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, it's the sort of thing that we can look down the future at,
Yeah.
digitising all this sort of information as well. So we're probably still a little primitive for that at the moment. We've got a few guys who are slightly sort of technically inclined, but not that many, unfortunately. So.
Won't it change? In 20 years, it's going to change hugely.
We hope so. We hope so.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's not just me that knows how to use a computer, so I get the secretary's job every year.
Oh, you poor bugger.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what it's like. My son's probably had enough of me,
Yeah.
Doing this whole thing. Now, you're quite allowed to have a little ceremony as you're the reef ball.
We offer at no additional cost. One of our members is actually I think it's called an acolyte, sort of a lay preacher sort of thing, or an assistant for a priest in the Catholic Church. Now he can do, if they prefer, a religious type service at the beach, or alternatively a non-religious service, or they can get their own celebrant or whatever they might want to have. They don't necessarily have to have one. Usually they've already had a funeral sort of thing, so we're getting the ashes. But when the family and friends turn up on the beach or whatever to watch the whole sort of reef ball going into the water thing, they quite often appreciate a few words being said about the person at the time as well, sort of thing. So we're happy to offer that service. It's at no additional cost. It's taken up by most people, but not by all.
Now, is this exclusive to you guys over there? Or
absolutely. Yep.
So it's nobody can just pop up and do it?
No. We are the only people with a license to do it, and with the appropriate approvals to do it. We're also the only people with the proper mould to do it.
Right.
Because there is a specific mould. The mould is actually licensed to a group called Reef Balls Australia. And we actually pay a fee for each time we use one of those reef balls.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure you're going to be getting inquiries from all around Australia and the world. You did say there was a couple of more in the world that are doing it.
We think there's maybe at least one or two in the United States. Those are the only other ones that we are aware of. But other than that, in the Southern Hemisphere, not just even in Australia, we're the only people that actually do it. We do get inquiries from all over Australia. Some people, particularly on the East Coast, who have heard about it, have contacted us and said, can you, if we send some ashes over, can put ashes in a reef ball and then send the reef ball back to us so we can drop it on the barrier reef or something. So, no, we can't do that because it's illegal for you to drop it in the ocean. I think it's actually illegal. It's contrary to environmental regs to actually even sprinkle a person's ashes into the water. And inevitably, they just simply wash up onto the beach and so on. It happens a lot, But
Yeah.
I think that no one's really, I think, going to be a brave person that decides to prosecute someone for dropping some ashes in the ocean.
Yeah. Worse than that, Rob, happened to a very good friend of mine, dearly departed friend of mine, and his family decided to scatter his ashes by the beach, but they didn't take into consideration which way the wind was blowing.
Yeah, there's always that with ashes. Yeah. We've actually got to be careful with that when we're actually putting ashes into the concrete mix as well. Because of exactly the same thing. When the wind is blowing, they are only ashes. A lot of it's pretty light. So last thing he wants to get a mouthful of it. So.
All right, Rob. Well, thank you very much for that. I might go in for that myself. It might be the closest I'll ever get to a heap of fish.
John, it might be of interest to your listeners as well, and maybe to yourself. You might want to take it up one day. We as a fundraiser, we also do what's called a Barely Brave Men in Jurien Bay calendar. Now that's a nude calendar. It's very popular with the ladies around town. We don't expose 100% of everything, but
you don't expose your balls, for example.
Not our reef balls. No, we wouldn't expose them naked to the world. Yep. No, but that is a good fundraiser as well. But it's difficult to get guys to actually get their kit off because the photographer's a lady, so it can be embarrassing. And I know when I did mine, my scene was out the end of a rock wall, which was great until I got out there and there was two fishermen standing there, and there's me with nothing on, saying, "Can we get you to move so I can take some photos, mate?"
They're hoping for a mermaid, and you show up.
Yeah. Put it this way, they had the biggest rods. Put it that way.
Oh yes, there you go. Thank you once again, Rob. It's a wonderful, wonderful innovation.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I wish you every success with it.
Yeah, good on you, mate. All right, good talking.
Thank you. On the Pulse, on the Shed Wireless.
Thanks, JPY, and g'day everyone. At the 10th National Conference in South Australia, we dared open Pandora's box to investigate and talk about an issue that we wouldn't on any given day talk about. With a room full of delegates, intrigued by the title of the session, When the Shit Hits the Dunny Fan, I'm sure you can see the play on the great Australian colloquialism, when the shit hits the fan, the session aimed to start a conversation about male incontinence and the issues that sheds and their members might come across with regards to this issue. I must admit, I was concerned about how this topic was going to be received. I was encouraged when we received the feedback that we did and the acknowledgement of the importance of the issue. I'm Stuart Torrance, the Men's Health Project Officer from the Australian Men's Shed Association, and you're listening to On the Pulse, where we discuss anything and everything regarding health and well-being. We're joined today by Kaz Kavanagh from Initial Hygiene, who did a sterling presentation at the conference, not only about the issue, but outlining some of the ideas about how we might address the issue in sheds. Welcome, Kaz, to On the Pulse.
Thanks for having me, Stuart. And a big hello to your network. I have to say it was one of the most enjoyable opportunities to talk at the annual conference, and I'm really grateful for you guys giving us the platform.
Before you got to the conference, you had a bit of a hiccup on the way.
I did. I made a taxi driver very, very rich on the day of the conference. So in my naivety, didn't look at the location, assumed it was going to be somewhere in the city. When I jumped into the taxi, the guy said to me, you do realise you're going out to the countryside. And it was quite eventful. So not only did it cost an absolute fortune to get there, but my taxi driver decided to have a little sleep on the way to the hotel on the motorway. So let me just say it woke me up before we actually got to the hotel. But look, we made it safely, and it was really worth it, Stuart, because as you probably know, I could talk about this topic until the cows come home. So it was very exciting to get an audience with the Shed Network, and the $250 taxi ride was definitely worth it. Anyway, we got out of it unscathed and uninjured, and that's the main thing.
Kaz, the ABS data doesn't lie. 1.6 million of Australian men of all ages experience urinary incontinence. And that's everything from a small drip that we've all experienced to a full-on no ability to stop the flow. This increases with age by more than 30% of men over 70 affected. Now we've jumped to over 3.8 million. We haven't even mentioned fetal incontinence. Now, these are issues Washroom Dignity, a program of Initial Hygiene, is trying to address. Tell us a little bit more about Washroom Dignity.
Thanks, Stuart. Well, look, the numbers do speak for themselves. I mean, 3.8 million men over the age of 70 being affected with incontinence is what really drove Initial Hygiene to develop the programme here in Australia. So Washroom Dignity encompasses menstrual and continence health, and basically gives memberships, clubs, corporate Australia the opportunity to think about their employees or their members or their athletes, and think about the needs when it comes to amenities in the washroom. So our program offers waste management solutions, so sanitary bins and dignity bins in the male washroom, through to the provision of dispensers to dispense product that we will need either when we're on our menstrual cycle or suffering from incontinence. And we are starting to, we're a year and a half into the programme now. I'm really grateful to say that corporate Australia has really come on board. We see a lot more businesses now taking this topic very seriously, and are investing in doing the right thing for their people when it comes to toiletry needs. So Washroom Dignity is my baby. I've been working on it now for a year and a half. And we've had many conversations with not just corporate Australia, but membership clubs such as the Sheds, and as well as sporting communities have really started to embrace the programme. Because, Stuart, you mentioned, unfortunately, continence is an aging, it's linked to aging, and it's definitely an aging issue. But what we find is when Washroom Dignity is not available outside of the home, we find, unfortunately, that men decide to retreat and become more and more excluded from places like the Shed or going to Westfields on a day to get their groceries. So it's an incredibly important programme that allows people to stay as part of society a lot longer than they would if they didn't have access to the right facilities.
Kaz, as you rightfully point out, social isolation is one of the key reasons that sheds were established and why they continue to be such a success. Let's face it, incontinence and period products are not a topic that we sit around and discuss every day, yet it can happen to anyone. Please fill us in.
Yeah, I mean, look, what I would say is, and I'm very grateful to the government on this one, the conversation is starting to grow. And why I'm grateful to the government is it's actually because of their investment in this space that more and more people are starting to become aware of Washroom Dignity. So if you go back a year and a half when we started the programme, Dan Andrews and the Labour government pledged that they would actually supply product for free across the state of Victoria if they were re-elected. And we've had a lot of government investment across each of the states. But unfortunately, that's only related to period. So the government is definitely acknowledging the need for menstrual products in the bathroom. Unfortunately, we're still far away from them recognising the needs of our male community when it comes to incontinence. And really, it should be no different, Stuart. Periods and incontinence are unfortunately a part of everyday life and form the toiletry habits for so many Australians. Why should access to an incontinence pad or a waste bin be any less important than access to a tampon and a menstrual bin? So what we're saying is the conversation is starting to grow, but we need to do a hell of a lot better when it comes to the discussion around incontinence.
Absolutely, Kaz. Before I was made aware of the need for sanitary bins in male spaces by the Bins for Blokes campaign initiated by the Continence Foundation, I had only thought the need was for female washrooms. I suppose I was believing something that wasn't true.
I often run polls on this, and I ran one at the conference, Stuart, if you remember, where I asked for a show of hands from the gentlemen in the room. How many of them, if they were in a pub or an RSL or a club, how many actually saw a dignity bin in the male washroom? And Stuart, I don't think one hand raised, when I asked that question. And it's very, very disappointing because yes, Bins for Blokes are doing a great job at amplifying the issue. But I remember about a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, they ran a segment on the news And a very brave gentleman came out and told his story. He couldn't go to Westfield with his wife on a Saturday because there was absolutely nowhere for him to safely and hygienically dispose of his waste. So another example of where someone brave enough to talk to the issue had withdrawn from society simply because there was no bin in the toilet. I mean, it's something that's so simple to implement, relatively inexpensive, and yet, we're still so far behind in this space.
Kaz, having been to many a shed, I really know and feel that the boys are there to look out for one another and provide whatever resources are needed by their members to look out for one another. Kaz, we have male-only sheds and a growing movement of women's sheds, but there are also a growing number of mixed sheds. And whether they be a shared space or a total integration, their shed, their rules. But whose responsibility is it to address these issues?
Oh, look, I have to say, Stuart, I was really heartened to see and have conversations with some of your members that are already doing something in this space. So I spoke to quite a few of the guys on the day who told me that they are supplying a bin, that they are mindful of the fact that some of their members may have this issue already. And that's absolutely amazing. For those that really haven't considered it yet, I think the first thing to do is understand the issue of incontinence. I mean, you gave us some interesting stats at the opening of this podcast, Stuart, but Continence Association of Australia have a lot of information and useful hints and tips on their website to allow us to at least, first of all, understand the issue that are facing our members. And then secondly, you can talk to me. I'd happily talk about this topic as much as I can. But there are a number of services available that, the sheds can implement with suppliers such as bins, dispensers for product. We did have a couple of members, Stuart, at the conference, if you recall, that obviously raised the issue of cost. And, some of the smaller sheds may be worried about what this would actually cost them. There are steps that you can obviously introduce yourself if you have the resources, such as putting a bin in, obviously making sure that the waste is disposed of responsibly, having product in the bathroom. It is relatively inexpensive to do. And what you'll find is, like I said, it helps to keep those members sticky and coming out of their homes, to integrate with the network.
Absolutely. Kaz, obviously providing such services and resources is going to come at a cost. But even the cost has two sides. The cost that comes straight to mind is that members facing these issues without access to services might withdraw and become socially isolated. Totally counterintuitive to what sheds are all about. Their depression would increase, and that in itself is what sheds are trying to address. In fact, Kaz, in one of our previous webinars, I recall talking about the initiative and how having bins in sheds would be important. And after the webinar, one of the coordinators who tuned in contacted me and said that her two sheds that she looks after in the Milton area and the Taylors Hill in Victoria both had male incontinence bins within their facility, and it had looked after 6 of the men within the shed so they can continue coming and maintain their social connection. Can you share a little bit about the other side of the coin that outline the basic costs of these services that address this? Because what I'm thinking, Kaz, is this is an ideal opportunity for the sheds maybe to have a look at the National Shed Development Grants Program, and maybe put in a submission to trial having a bin within their shed.
When you think about some of the initiatives that we run in community-based membership networks, this is probably one of the least expensive, when it comes to the product, when it comes to the bins, when it comes to the servicing of the bins. I can honestly say it is relatively inexpensive. And having 6 men be able to come out of their homes and actually integrate is just so incredible. What would happen if that bin or product wasn't there? What's the alternative? So I think definitely when it comes to bang for buck on this one, it's an investment that shouldn't go ignored.
Absolutely, seriously, to the point. Kaz, for anyone wanting to know more about continence, we recommend that they go to the Continence Foundation website, www.continence.org.au. And for anyone wanting to know more about providing this service to their members, they can go to Initial's website, www.initial.com.au.
Yeah, so we have a website, initialhygiene.com/au. I would be more than happy to have a one-on-one conversation. My email address is k.kavanagh@rentakill-initial.com. Stuart, you also have my details if any of the members want to reach out through you. Happy
Absolutely.
to connect and happy to obviously share a lot more of the insights that we've drawn upon over the last year and a half as part of our washroom dignity journey. So yeah, absolutely. Hit me up on LinkedIn, Kaz Kavanagh, drop me an email or just go through yourself, Stuart. Happy to arrange a conversation.
More than happy to link people up with you, Kaz. Kaz, thank you so much for sharing your presentation information with us again today and joining us today. Thank you so much for this important issue. We might discuss putting together a webinar, recording it and placing it on the Australian Men's Shed Association website so all can see and hear this important information again.
Thanks a lot.
I'm Stuart Torrance, and this has been your lot for On the Pulse. John, back to you.
Thanks, Stuart.
On the tools. On the Shed Wireless.
Marty's up next with On the Tools, and he's talking to a shed with some unusual tools and equipment. Hi, Marty. Where are you today?
G'day, JPY. Today I'm at the Lake Monger Community Shed, just on the outskirts of Perth. It's a bit noisy in here, but this is a great little shed. We're actually having an event here in a few days while we're over here. But this is a very unique shed, simply for the fact that it's a community shed, lots of members. But at a lot of the events we do around the country, as you would know, we try and encourage a lot of community organisations to come along to the events to display what they do and encourage new projects and new activities throughout the sheds. And one of those we always try and get is the local potters groups, which is fantastic because pottery is such a cathartic exercise. I liken it a lot to, using the timber lathe and things like that, using bowls on the lathe. But at the Lake Monger shed here, they actually have a potting group. They are fully set up to do pottery. And I'm here right now. There must be a dozen or more people here around the potter's wheels and on the tables there. They've got kilns and set up here. So this is really unique. I've never actually seen it in a shed at this level. So I'm here with Colin Slattery from the Lake Monger Community Shed, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how this came to be with the Potters Group here. G'day, Colin.
Yeah, well, g'day, Marty. Nice to be joining you on this fine broadcast. Look, the Lake Monger Community Shed, and it's sort of in the name a bit there as well, as it's for all of community. So it's been designed as something that anyone could actually come along and create a space for themselves. But in the formation of it, the idea was put forward that, we create a pottery space, and we got sponsored 4 pottery wheels to start off with, and now we've got 8 pottery wheels, and we've got 2 kilns, and we've got probably around about 60% of our 300-odd members are actually qualified for pottery.
Wow.
So it's great. I agree with you on the cathartic part. Once you're working with clay, you're only thinking about that.
Yeah.
Cleanses the mind beautifully. It's really good for the soul. And so we open in the evenings. We get all sorts of young professionals coming in here as well. So you got lots of young medicos coming in who want to get away from the pressures of the job and do some clay work. It's bloody fantastic.
It is a unique shed in that way too, in that respect too. The age demographic of this shed is very dissimilar to many of the average, sheds around Australia.
I think it dispels a bit of that myth, right? That it's crusty old people.
There's still a few crusty old people here, mate, don't you?
Oh, well, no, that's all part of life, right? We got our oldest member's 90.
There you go.
We've got 70% of our membership is under the age of 60, and 30% of our membership is under the age of 40. So it's very diverse, and it just really reflects well on what the future looks like, right? We talk about what's the sort of succession. And we've got a lot of young people coming through, and it's really good to get a mix, right? It's really nice on a Thursday night. There'll be 20 potters in here, chatting away, learning from each other, new techniques, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's great.
So you put a lot of that down to the fact that you are open to these different and new sort of activities within the shed, and like, if anyone comes and says, I'd like to do this, let's give it a go, and look what's happened here.
Oh, absolutely. Clay's grown because it's popular. A lot of people signing up now are signing up because they want to do clay work.
Yeah.
And then they discover the joys of wood or metalwork. So, it's good like that. We've also got an art class that happens here as well. Quite a space where people can come and have their ideas, and if there's new stuff that people want to do, then the committee is open to having a look at how we can do it. I think the joy is when the original committee was setting this stuff up, they really put their minds quite wide about what can we do.
Yeah.
And there was a very passionate person, Ros McKenzie, who will hate me for saying this, but she and a couple of others really driving force behind introducing pottery into the place, and it's been a huge success.
Wow. Unbelievable. And is it a hive of activity here at the moment? This is a Saturday morning. We're here at the moment. So is there specific days you have the pottery going, or is it any day the shed's open? Or
Sure. We have a calendar. We break things up. So we've also got a 3D modelling crew here as well. So we do 3D printing. We've got a CNC machine. So on Tuesday nights, it'll be 3D crew, it'll be clay crew, and it's also our woodworking lesson class. So we've got someone who teaches people basic tool skills, hand tool skills. And then on Thursday nights, again, it's the 3D makers crew and pottery. And so that's the 2 dedicated evenings. Then there's general sessions throughout the week where everyone just gets together.
Yeah.
And as you probably heard a little bit earlier, the metalwork area is a little bit noisy, so people try to sometimes go for the quieter.
That's all right. I'm just blown away because there's so much work going on in this shed. A lot of sheds I go to, there's nothing going on. They're all sitting around the table just drinking coffee and talking BS.
Well, we don't mind that.
Yeah, well, you do know that element, don't you?
We do a bit of that,
Yeah.
absolutely. But and that's part of the joy. We've got an open day coming up in November where we'll be showing off the shed to the local community.
Yeah.
Trying to make a little bit of money as well, selling a few products. So it's good, and it'll just keep growing.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, and the pottery's still going on. There's still woodwork going on in the other area. There's still metalwork going on in the pottery. So they're not interfering with each other. They're all just working in unison. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and that just proves they can mix together.
Yeah.
Right. I joined to do pottery, but I'm doing woodwork.
Yeah. So good.
Good. And the kit.
Yeah.
The people who set this place up just did an awesome job in designing it, getting the right gear in place, and helping us expand along the way as well. So yeah, really, really good.
Now, all credit to you guys. Unbelievable. It's so interesting to see it. It's so wonderful to see it. You look at it and I think, I want to give that a go. It just looks like great fun. And I always say with the metal lathe, like I say, that cathartic experience. You can get on a wood lathe for half an hour and you just completely forget about the world. You can sit like look at that lady on the potter's wheel there now, and you just absolutely just must be in a trance, like a meditation kind of thing, isn't it?
Well, it is that where you got to concentrate, right? Sometimes you're doing things that are, got some danger in them, like the lathe.
Yeah.
The potter's wheel, not so much dangerous, but if you're not doing your fine motor sense skill work on it, you'll stuff it up. So you got to concentrate, and just cleanses your mind of everything. I love it.
Do you think you and I could recreate the scene from Ghost? If I sit at the potter's wheel, you could come around behind me. And
depends who's you're going to sit in front. Okay, we can do that as long as it's not the other way.
That'd be beautiful, mate. That'd be so special. All right, mate. I might have to talk to a couple of the other guys, but thank you so much for this. And like I say, it's a very unique and special shed. I absolutely love it. So thanks, mate.
Go and have a look at some people with really great talent over there, like Richard. We can learn lots from him. We've got some hand builders over there. So there's a between the pottery, it's not just wheel work, it's hand builders, a lot of sculptors in here, playing with colour and clay. So yeah, it's exciting.
You got the whole thing. You got the kiln, you got everything. So yeah, great setup, mate. Good on you. All right, thanks so much, Colin. Good on you.
Great to see you.
I'm sitting here with Anna. Anna's here doing some sort of, you're at the handcraft sort of table, pottery table sort of thing. So
not handcraft, hand building. So instead of using a wheel to produce your clay, you do it by either coils or slabs and construct various things like Janine's just doing some samples over there, and he's doing some very fine work over there as well, just making interesting shapes.
Right.
And it's not so controlled as on the wheel, because you can make whatever shape you want to. Okay. And it's really nice just as a therapy to use the clays as your therapy within your mental health. It's great for mental health. Absolutely great for mental health.
I was just saying that. I was just talking to Colin over there and saying how cathartic it is to be on the wheel or to be sitting here like this and just. But not only that, it's the social aspect of it too. Is brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
The social aspect is wonderful, but if you don't like what you made, you squash it up and you start again.
Beautiful.
And then you release your tensions by pounding.
You can't do that on a timber lathe though, can you?
No, but you can.
You can burn it. But yeah.
And we've got a lovely group of people that all have band together and become friends. I mean, Janine and I were friends before, but everybody else, that's my sister over there. She came because I was here. And then we've got other people that we've met and formed great bonds. It's wonderful.
Wow. Did you all do pottery before you came here, or you sort of started it here? And
Tracy, my sister, she started going elsewhere and is now just perfecting her techniques, just practicing.
Yep.
Richard was an art teacher and has taught lots to do with that. So he had clay. What about you?
Probation from the courts. I had to go and do pottery.
Probation from the courts, had to go and do pottery. Okay. All right, there you go. Well, that's a good sentence, isn't it? That's not too bad. I could think of worse places to be.
So we've got a good band and we're all friends. So and it's a nice community. Yeah.
Oh, so you like each other outside the shed too?
Yeah,
wow!
we don't
Oh my
just
God!
meet here.
Wow! I thought you were putting on a front, but that's
No.
oh, fantastic! I'll have to
We
come
talk
along.
a lot more than the men in the other areas because we sit and we chat and we talk about things. We solve our problems and
Solve the world's
and the world's
Yep.
problems, and
No.
it's just
good for
it's
you.
really good.
Good for you. I was just saying, this is it's wonderful to see such a unique activity. I don't see it in a lot of sheds, but it's fantastic to see, and it's look, you can just tell how popular and beautiful it is. So.
Well, it's really good because to get a kiln is a really expensive outlay. To buy a wheel is an expensive outlay. They've supplied that, so you just come here, use their equipment, but use your creativity and your clay.
Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you guys today. This is great. And I want to get my hands dirty. I just said to Colin we're going to recreate the scene from Ghost over there on one of the wheels.
Who are you going to do it with, Colin?
Colin, yeah. He's going to get behind me and just put his arms around me and beautiful. Can you guys play the song? What's this? All right, thanks so much, ladies. All right, back to you, JPY.
Thanks for that, Marty. Now, that is an image I didn't need to think of. Lucky this is radio and not video. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the Lake Monger area, the Woodchip people of the Noongar Nation. The lake itself will soon be renamed to its traditional name, which is Gallup, meaning place of campfires. So, Rip, what wisdom are you going to impart to us today about love and marriage?
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Nailed it with Rip Woodchip.
G'day, sitters, Rip Woodchip here. How y'all going today? I've just been out buying the missus an anniversary present. Well, when I say out buying one, I mean dropping some dollars off to me daughter so she can go grab something. She's a little bit better at that stuff than I am. I still cop a bit of grief about the time I bought her a washing basket for her birthday, you know. Yeah, 54 years this year. Who could have thunk it? Yeah, they say you get less for murder, and I'm sure she's contemplated it at times too. And I wouldn't blame her. I'm not the easiest fella to live with. But mind you, she can push my buttons as well at times. She's always complaining about things like me leaving the toilet seat up. But I hate the fact she leaves the bloody thing down. So no biggies, but just that little stuff. And you either learn to live with it, or you fight an endless battle to try and rectify their wrongs. All in all, though, I don't like to complain, and I really shouldn't. You know that saying, there's someone for everyone? Well, that sure rings true. But the tricky bit is being lucky enough to stumble across that someone, and then having them fall for you also. I don't know what I did to deserve my Penelope, but there'd be more of a chance of me winning the Miss Universe contest than for that 16 trillion match to ever happen again. For me to be matched with someone that fits me bill like she does, you know? Yeah, she's definitely the yin me yan, the peas with me carrots, the egg in me omelette, and me biscuit in me tea. But saying that, it's been 54 years of getting there, and it still takes work at times. Well, not necessarily work, but you just got to be mindful of you biting your tongue, pulling your head in, and having a good look at yourself at times, and making certain allowances. And don't take things for granted. And like anything of value to you, like me old Massey Ferguson, a good marriage takes maintenance. And the more you appreciate it, and the more you maintain and care for it, the more you get back from it. Maybe not a great analogy, but you gets me drift. But that's just me and I got lucky. Some people never find anyone, and others find and go through relationships like mower blades. Expensive bloody mower blades, mind you. And also, you hear some people sticking out of marriage for years just for the sake of the kids. And as soon as the nest is empty, it's whooska, and they're out of there. Each their own, I guess, and good on them. Some people will grow together, and some people will just grow apart. We're all prone to change, and it's a long life, and we only get one of them as far as I know. And Mrs. Right might have been right for then, but maybe not so right for now. And as we don't have an infinite amount of time on the big farm, well, maybe we need to graze in a different paddock. But just not for me and my Penelope. Well, I hope not. She might have other plans, of course. Who bloody knows with that woman? It's like she's got a mind of her own at times. Anyway, Shedders, I better go get me ears lowered. I got a hot date tonight. Catch you next time, fellas. See ya!
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. Drop me an email to theshedwireless@menshed.net and let us know what you'd like to hear about in next year's season of The Wireless. Until next time, folks, for the love of shedding.
It don't matter if you work with wood or fabricating metal is the thing you understood. Whatever is your game, everyone's the same. Yeah, we can do it all at the men's shed. Short, fat, tall, skinny, hairy, bald. In the shed, it's welcome one and all. Share the skills you know, we're all having a go. There's a helping hand in the men's shed. Yeah, there's something for you at the men's shed.